The Matrix's controversial sequels were never bad, and the first movie proves it. The sequels to The Matrix were never universally liked, but they were never bad, and the original film shows why. The ranking of every movie in the Matrix franchise is fairly easy. The original stands well above the rest. After 3 additional movies and 25 years, none of the Wachowski sisters' films have managed to recapture the magic that made the first so special. The sequels to The Matrix certainly aren't as good as the original, but they've also received a much harsher backlash than they deserve. The Matrix Reloaded, The Matrix Revolutions, and The Matrix Resurrections aren't bad, and The Matrix proves it. A big reason the sequels to The Matrix were so controversial is because the original movie was so beloved. The Matrix introduced sci-fi fans to a world unlike any other in film, and it had such limitless potential that its sequels could have gone in any conceivable direction. It was almost inevitable that the sequels would step on the toes of fans, as most viewers had a different idea of how Neo's, Keanu Reeves' story would play out. Despite it all, however, the Matrix sequels still have something to offer the franchise, and they're far from bad movies. The Matrix, 1999, remains a perfect movie regardless of the sequels. Even though some people claim that Reloaded and Revolutions ruined The Matrix as a franchise, the original movie is still a timeless classic. Even after 25 years and 3 sequels, the first film in the series is still a classic sci-fi movie, and it's still one of the best movies ever made. The Matrix has a truly unimpeachable legacy, and that's because all of its sequels added to the original movie, rather than retroactively changing it. The Godfather wasn't ruined by The Godfather Part II, and The Terminator wasn't ruined by Terminator Genisys, and in the same way, The Matrix wasn't ruined by The Matrix Revolutions. Knowing how Neo's story ends and all the convoluted steps it took to get there doesn't weaken the beginning of his journey. The Matrix is still a groundbreaking, eye-opening film, regardless of how cerebral the series got in later years. The sequels simply added to the legacy of The Matrix by acting as, essentially, optional supplemental material for people who wanted to learn even more about the film's world. Viewers don't have to know who the architect was or how Neo navigated the machine war to enjoy The Matrix, but the ideas the sequels presented help enrich the world for those fans who do want more. The Matrix sequels weren't necessary, but added to the first movie's legacy. The sequels to The Matrix weren't entirely necessary, but they did help establish the franchise as a pillar of the science fiction genre. While viewers may disagree with how the sequels approached the questions The Matrix set up, it can't be denied that they furthered the conversation. The Matrix Reloaded, for example, strengthened the franchise's focus on free will and choice even more than the original did. Revolutions also dove much deeper into the machines themselves and unearthed new questions about Neo's role as a savior. The sequels helped establish The Matrix as a thoughtful and philosophic sci-fi franchise. The sequels helped The Matrix remain in pop culture for the better part of 2 decades, and they added just as many interesting components to the franchise as they did things that didn't work as well. If anything, the sequel's greatest mistake was focusing too much on the more cerebral parts of the world of The Matrix. Even that, however, helped turn the franchise into an enduring part of sci-fi history. Fans have been discussing all the themes and moral questions of the Matrix franchise for decades, and those conversations likely would have ended years ago if there was only a single movie in the series. The sequels helped The Matrix remain in pop culture for the better part of 2 decades, and they added just as many interesting components to the franchise as they did things that didn't work as well. Some of The Matrix's most iconic scenes came from Reloaded and Revolution. One of the most noticeable ways Reloaded and Revolutions help cement The Matrix's legacy is through a handful of iconic scenes. Even viewers who didn't like the sequels likely admit that there were a few truly iconic moments that came out of them. Several of Neo and Agent Smith's best fights happened in the sequels. Their super burly brawl in the rain in The Matrix Revolutions, for example, is still one of the franchise's best. Likewise, Morpheus and Trinity's truck sequence in The Matrix Reloaded is often cited as one of the most impressive stunts in sci-fi history. While the sequels aren't as good on the whole as The Matrix, those impressive high-water marks prove that they weren't bad. There were certainly missteps, from the architect's speech in Reloaded to Trinity's death at the end of Revolutions, but they didn't completely ruin their respective movies. The best scenes in The Matrix's sequels show that those movies had something worthwhile to contribute to the franchise, even if they weren't great on their own. How The Matrix Resurrections will age compared to the first sequels remains to be seen. The most recent sequel to The Matrix Resurrections, is a bit more odd among the franchise. Since it was released in 2021, it's not yet clear how it will age. A big reason it's so hard to predict how Resurrections will fit in with the rest of the franchise is that it's so reliant on the original movie. While there are certainly some new features at play, from better visual effects to a heavier emphasis on the love between Trinity and Neo, Resurrections is almost entirely beholden to The Matrix, right down to the cast of Resurrections. The other sequels to The Matrix were mostly disliked because of how they deviated from the original, so it's hard to say whether Resurrections will be looked on more favorably for being essentially a soft remake. The Matrix Resurrections reviews were fairly average, but there's a chance its meta-narrative and commentary on the state of legacy sequels will only get more applicable with time. The Matrix 5 will also have a big impact on how Resurrections ages, as it will have a chance to either double down on its similarities to The Matrix or take the franchise in a completely different direction.